What? For public comment, would please state your name for the record, and once three from the other, just name. Okay, I'm up for questions or comments. Yes.
Might as well start out. Yes?
Please.
Can I make Elliot? Some general comments. First, I think it's awfully difficult to find, who you really want. And it's easy to say who we don't want. I've gone through this sort of experience before. And some people obviously, or some groups, ought to be eliminated for various reasons. But part of the criteria, I think, and what is critical in all this is, there are a couple of things, more than a couple actually. One are the instructions actually given to the architectural groups. What were those instructions, and did they follow those instructions when they come here? Another one is the presentation. There are people who give lousy presentations who might be very good, and vice versa. I mean, you can see some of the drawings that, for example, did for Monsanto. They're very charming little drawings, and people would think, oh, that's really wonderful. But that's not sometimes how things work, as we all know. Another critical thing is the hunger of the architect, or the architectural group. I think that's awfully important. They really want it. And of course, the background and the experience is also critical, as well as what they're going to cost. I mean, for example, they were all asked to say, what is your fee? Isn't that correct?
Yes.
That's one of the things. There was only one architect, or one group, who talked about that. And I think finally what it comes down to is magic. Who do we think can deliver the magic within all the zoning boards, within all the money, within how many bays, and where it's going to lie, and so forth. And in going through that, I'm just going to make an opinion about this. I think the Philip Johnson group really are, for many reasons, not hungry enough, didn't do the preparation enough, and so forth. But they did present one interesting idea, which was to do the firehouse a little bit like a mill, and with those huge windows. That's sort of an interesting idea. I thought the noise vote people were good, but a little bit boring. But what? Boring. Oh, boring. I know that. I thought the last group, had done their homework on the whole, didn't tell us, how much money it would cost, and of course do the standardized, wonderful presentations that they give to everybody. I really have always had a feeling that their firehouses were about the most uninteresting firehouses around, as I also thought of the first group. And there was just something about this fellow, Steve McAllister, that as he went on and as he presented things to us, that I think ought to be considered very carefully. He obviously talked about the great problem. Everybody knows about it. All the groups know about the great problem. He also talked about the zoning variances, and I thought he talked with great sensitivity about the community as a whole. I'm the person who would love to see a new type of building built that isn't Greek revival or whatever. That would be fun to do. But I'm not sure that's possible in this community. But he left things open for us so we could go ahead. He was the only person just to stick on the Main Street exit, which seems like not such a hot idea. It probably ought to be opposite. It was a terrible conundrum in a way. But he was also the only person to talk about fees, which I think is very important. I thought the fees were also very cheap, by the way. And these firehouse standards, all the people who have come before have really talked about firehouse standards, and they're all very well aware of you have to this and that and everything else. So, just to cut to the chase, I think this fellow, Steve McAllister, and his group would be ideal for our community.
If I can touch on one thing here, as far as the fees, two of the firms approached me after the meeting. One with their fees in hand, which you can look at right now.
What was the percentage in those?
I didn't look. And the Schoenhart, who just left here, they said they're going to fax the fees. They forgot to bring their paper with them. So on their behalf, the Johnson firm was the only ones that did not present. Okay. Emmy, please state your name.
Yeah, Emmy Horton. I don't have an opinion to express about these four presenters, but I do think that the committee would be wise to ask each group what have been their cost overruns on the last 5 public projects that they have been involved in.
Good question.
Excellent.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And you can work out the percentages then. It would be a very key factor.
Thank you. Any other comments from?
Yes, Diana McFadden, you're talking about zoning, and what he was talking about was 40 feet, 50 feet, and everything else, that sort of scared me, so,
Who's he?
the one you like.
McAllister.
They're all talking about, they were all
No,
talking about
he was talking about 40 feet, 50 feet.
39 feet.
He said 39.
39 feet, and I think that has to be taken into account.
Yes, you said
Cormac O'Malley. I think with respect to the Philip Johnson, I concur that it didn't seem to be adequate preparation. I did like the idea of an almost Georgian window, like a mill with loads of stream of light coming in. I think that that concept could be given to any other of the architects. And I think their location and their relationship with the community just seemed to be off. The last group seemed to be perhaps more, I don't know, pizzazz than they didn't really need a team approach, though everyone should have a team. I really would go between number 1 and 3. I liked the first person's, didn't quite get the name, but the philosophy and the attitude, as I thought the individual in the third, McAllister, was. I would tend to weigh toward number 3, McAllister, rather than 1. But anyway, and obviously I think I'm very concerned with budget. I mean, I don't know how one comes in at these prices. Certainly, one of the considerations you need to give is phase 1 and phase 2. Every building has it, and there are elements that you can put into a subsequent phase. The orientation, I think, is going to be critical, but that's just one of the problems you're going to have to wrestle with. So, good luck in your.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Charlie Starr, I am intrigued with the idea of exiting onto Alpha Avenue. I think that's a very good idea. If it can be handled, there may be legal problems with getting permission to put lights. I don't know how that might work. I liked the first one, and I thought Mr. McAllister was a little bit, he didn't have as much about the site as I would have liked to see. I like the first one from the point of view of the study of the site. I agree with whoever else said that the fourth seemed to be a little bit pat. It was those presentation sheets were boilerplate, obviously.
Thanks, Charlie.
Sibby, well, the last fellow seemed to have the most understanding of how to build a firehouse. I don't know, I don't think that Philip Johnson does, but maybe the first two do, and they just didn't get that across to us. But when he was talking about the drainage troughs and that sort of thing, that seemed really important. And I'd love it if he could do the inside, and maybe Philip Johnson did the outside, and McAllister could be the one we talk to.
Emmy, then I'll get to you, Jim.
Emmy Horton again. I liked the first group, frankly. I thought they were the most sensitive to working with committees and working with the town on what everybody wanted to see. And I liked the fact that they had done 4 or 5 firehouses.
This is the first group?
The first
Noise will
group,
go?
yeah. And I liked it. They were very low-key. They didn't come across as wanting themselves too much. I think that would be important in working with the committee and being sensitive to the things that they did discuss, architecture and other things.
Jane,
Well, I like
say your
to,
name for the record, Jane.
Jane Devereaux. Well, I like Schoenhardt's presentation, because it made you give the feeling that they had considered all kinds of things. One thing that nobody mentioned is what kind of outdoor lighting, all-night lighting you're going to have there, because I just remember what happened to the seaport with the neighbors raising hell, and they didn't mention that. And I also like Steve McAllister too. I did feel that he sounded as if he wanted to give us what we wanted and could have, which is two different things, what we need and what we can afford.
Thank you.
Yeah, Peggy Aronson. Well, I thought that 1, 3, and 4 actually did have experience and probably could do the job and seemed willing to work. But also with the final apprentice, Steffhart, is that
Schoenhardt.
Schoenhardt, sorry. I know somebody named Steffhart, Schoenhardt. I did like the idea that they had thought about more than one way of orienting the bays, also with the angled way, and while they didn't address lighting per se as far as the building is concerned, they did address about light shining into the houses across the street. So I thought that they had put, well, yes, a lot of it was boilerplate at first, just those things about what we do. But I thought they had put quite a bit of thought into that particular site.
I'm a bit concerned about the firemen coming in, because a lot of them come from outside the borough, and if it seems like a good idea probably to have the fire trucks come out onto Alpha, onto the viaduct, but then where are the firemen going to enter, and do they have to go all the way around? And none of them spoke to that.
I think the main thing in all this is really the siting. And as my favorite candidate in Callister suggested, that all of this, it's not being decided today. All of these are problems. They have to be met one after the other. The siting is obviously critical in all this. The lighting is critical, the amount of noise, the traffic lights, and there's a whole bunch of other things. But I felt McAllister was the only person who talked about aesthetics. And I think these other firehouses that have been built around here, especially the one in Mystic, are just awful. And this would be an interesting, a little more interesting than others.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment?
Well, just about McAllister's, he had this sort of Greek-looking building, and it looked terrific. It was on a flat plane, but then I said, where's the viaduct go? And then here he had all these intricate doorways going into it, but the viaduct went right in front of them all and cut them off, and it just seemed that
None of these are finished designs.
I know, but he hadn't really heard.
The thing about all of them is that where will they take us? Where will we end up? Not right now.
But everything he showed us needs a variance.
Well, it's going to
It's going to happen to everybody.
Yes, I think the height. I think the height issue is going to be a concern no matter who designs it. It's bays and firehouses are 20 feet tall, the first bay, the floor bays. So, I mean, we will have to address those logistical questions as we go through all this. Yes.
Cormac O'Malley again. I mean, one thing, since it's really the committee that's going to run it, is the visual impact that the final design will have is the first thing that you will see as you come in to the village. So what you're really asking is, which of these groups do you sort of believe and trust will have concept? Some of the details. Most architects are trained in all of the details. You're really talking, I think, the one person who's head of a team. Is there one person that you like, that you can trust, that you can have this relationship with, and has done some of these before? I think those are the elements that you would look at.
Jeff Callahan. I only saw one of the presentations. I was otherwise occupied. But just a comment from experience in terms of the visual appearance. I would say it's an old trick that I've seen architects employ is when they show you what the building's going to look like, They forget to show you all the machinery on the roof or stuff like that
Yeah.
that suddenly appears at the end. So if you're really trying to understand what the thing looks like, make sure that all those systems, all that equipment, everything is on the drawing that they're showing you.
Any other comments?
Just the sour grapes department here is that, you know, when Dodson's was allowed to put that big shed in, and everybody said, oh, you're not even supposed to be looking, you're supposed to just look at the road when you're driving, don't look over to the side, and now suddenly it's a major importance, it's just infuriating that Dodson's building was allowed. Anyway, sorry. I couldn't contain it.
We'll have another meeting on that.
We are sensitive, we are very sensitive to the
Thank you.
aesthetics
I really
as a
thank
committee and as a board of ordinances, so.
Thank you very much.
I thank you all very much, your time.